We the only ones that can decide, well, hey, I ain't gonna
Niamah. Move around.
Right here? Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Oh, you take me now? No, it's okay. I got one-on-one. That is different from what the Bible is. Totally different. Now my question is, what is the There's only one. white Christians, so-called so what we should do is everybody
we get ready to start. On the table.
ran me up on the computer telling me that I have a license and
Sorry we're late. We had a whole number of things. I think Conrad must have been out there. Conrad must have been out there praying that we didn't put this thing together or something because yeah, everything that could have been wrong, although it didn't go wrong, it certainly made a good effort to prevent us from being here. But nothing would have kept me from here, even Lena, Brother Mbanna. And I think Brother Mbanna understands what I'm talking about. Those of you who know me and or Lena know what I'm talking about. See what I got to deal with now? We got a lot of that. Snoop Doggy Dog. Angela Davis ain't got nothing coming. But again, nothing would have stopped me from being here. Just for your edification, the panel here, I think we're going to discuss a lot of things. Feel free, there'll be enough time during our presentations or the information that we have to give you, where you will be, in fact, be able to ask questions. Don't feel restricted in terms of what you ask. Ask anything that you feel. Because believe me, as any of you know me, and I've been doing the programs in Mbanna, so if you got the tapes, you know where he's coming from. Brother Brian, I know you've got his tapes, you know where he's coming from. I don't even know where Randy's going. I don't know where he's coming from. and I know you saw the cable program with Brother Niamah, so I'm sure that everybody has a pretty good idea of where we are coming from here. We certainly are not incumbent upon saying those things that we feel that need to be said about whoever it needs to be said about, be it Jesse or the Negro politician or Slick Willie or Danny Davis or Ken Smith or Mr. Farrakhan.
That's right.
We don't intend to leave anybody out of this because I think that we all feel that here in 1994, if all of these religious personages tell us that the truth will set us free, then I think that we need to be about just that, the truth, which we feel is manifested through proof. I don't want you to go away from here thinking that anything we say is written in concrete, for I do believe that we are in fact a spiritual people outside of your religious preferences. And I think that because of that, we're going to come out on top no matter what they throw at us. They've been throwing all kind of shit at us anyway, and I see all y'all scared here, so as long as y'all here, we got a chance, all right? So I'm going to bring the sister who just warmed my heart when I listened to the tape. So she's at the beginning, and if she's not, then her mother certainly is. I'm looking for the cameraman. How come you ain't never on the tapes? Little Mbanna. We're going to get this guy on the tapes, man. Yeah. But the sister just warms my heart. She'll introduce herself and then introduce the members of the panel, Brother Randy, wherever you are. And I hope we can get this thing kicked off. I can assure you, look at this. Now, you won't go to a library, some libraries, and find this much stuff, and you certainly won't go in many of our homes and find a fraction of it, all right? This is Brother Randy. You may not see him behind this, but if you hear a voice, coming from behind this cul-de-sac, don't despair. That's Brother Randy back there, all right? So, we hope to get this thing on the road. We hope to get this thing on the road. I give you... I thank you, and let me give you Sister Kanadi Kantako. Well, she pulled no glasses out there.
Zelango, this is Kanadi Kantako. What you're about to hear is a Black Liberation Radio exclusive presentation that will be first aired Sunday, April 17th, 1994 at 5 o'clock p.m. entitled Brothers at the Real Table Part 22, Live and Correct. The guests will be out of the criminal enterprise called Chicago, Illinois, War Correspondent, Commander in the Black Liberation Air Force, Brother Niamah Ben Israel. And also out of the criminal enterprise called Chicago, Illinois, War Correspondent, Commander in the Black Liberation Air Force, and Knowledge Gangster, Brother Robert X. And also out of the criminal enterprise called Chicago, Illinois, War Correspondent, Commander in the Black Liberation Air Force, and researching with an attitude, Brother Randy Evans.
You got guts now, huh?
And
say that I've had a lot of opportunities to speak at a lot of different places. I've had the opportunity to perhaps do some things that I can probably say I shouldn't have been given opportunities to do. But in all my 40 years of being on this planet, there's nothing outside of 40. That's right. They always tease me because I'm the old man. I'm the old man in the crowd. But there's nothing more that has had perhaps as great an impact on me outside of the black woman and the 3 kids that got me out here to begin with, to let me know that I couldn't claim the mantle of manhood if I couldn't protect the women in our community, or at least put them in a position where some of their needs were met. The only other thing that I can say is comparable to that is sitting up in Steve Copley's lecture for the first time, not knowing what the hell he was talking about, and thinking that this guy was absolutely insane. And perhaps overtaking it at this point, the opportunity to be a part of something that has literally gone across this country, whether you know it or not. And I'm sure that these particular tapes and this information is in fact, because we hear other people, as we shall show you, using our information all the time, all over the country. Our people are becoming much more aware, and because of that, it has made some people begin to hold secret meetings, where they go back and get people from a bygone era, but to prevent the dirt. And that's what we are. We are not, in fact, brand.
Because you are a Republican or Democrat. You, we, us, we catch hell because we are a specific people. And we must come to grips and understanding exactly, biblically and Islamically, who we are as people. I leave you in peace and thank you. Shalom.
All right. Just a reminder before we move on to the next panel member here tonight, my wife Dia is back in the back there, got some programs from Black Liberation Radio, and for a $2.50 donation, you can select a 90-minute program of your choice. There's some 10 different programs back there, and you know, we're kind of proud of the work the Creator has blessed us to be a part of, and we'd like to share that with you if you're willing.
And they loaded. They loaded.
Now here's the baby that bunch up here tonight at the ripe old age of 28 out of the Crown Enterprise called Columbus, Ohio. Brother Brian Mwatta here, do you want to say something to me?
All right, sure, Lango. Thank y'all for welcoming me to the Daily Plantation. That kind of stuff.
You got that right.
Didn't show my pass, but I got my ghetto pass with me. So
That's right.
Hey, like the brother said, you know, we're in a time where we have to make a choice. Like Brother Samuel Yetch said in his book, The Choice, the issue of black survival in America. The late ancestor, Dr. Bobby Wright, said we always must include the last part of that, the issue of black survival in America, you know, because that's what it's all about. And I think that we have to decide, you know, we've been getting our asses kicked for over 400 years, and we need to decide whether we want to continue to do that or whether we want to kick some ass ourselves.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, right now, we're going to show you how to do it with the books and articles and stuff, you know, to fill your mind with the ammunition that you need. I have a button that I forgot to wear today that has a picture of Brother El Hajj Malik El Shabazz that says the mind is a lethal weapon. You know, because we need to keep that in mind because, hey, you know, it's like we used to say back on the radio show when we used to do Free Your Mind with the New Jack Scholars. It says, you know, once you go toe-to-toe with this cracker, once you have the knowledge, you can rip the sheets off the lies and leave them buck naked with no sources. So basically, we're here to drop science. I'm going to turn it over to the elders and let them get down. But hey, I'm here to contribute whatever I can.
Now we'll go all the way to the far end there and pick up a researcher with an attitude right here out of the criminal enterprise called Chicago, Brother Randy Evans.
Uhuru, Zalango. Thanks for coming out. I really appreciate y'all coming out. I'm sorry for the delay and everything. I'm really blessed to be here. It's a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of interesting questions, and basically we hope to hopefully share some information that will be edifying. Hopefully, you know, if we get a chance to have a dialogue with y'all, and I know I don't know everything, thank you, Creator, but I want to try to see what I can share with y'all, and hopefully help y'all in the process. What I want to do, I'm trying to keep this short and sweet because I know I'm a loquacious person.
Yes,
I'm a sensitive talker.
No worries, he's got a big mouth.
Since you said it, now I'm going to have to. But seriously, I really enjoyed this. This is fun. I hope we can do this more often. I hope that we can get a chance to get together and share information. Hopefully we'll be able to set up a network throughout the country to share and exchange information. We're in the process of setting up a research center so we can share information and hopefully do the job that many of these handkerchief head pork chop culture nationalists will these tavern intellectuals, these tabernaculars, these bottom-up intellectuals at the Center for Inner Studies and Chicago State, they know who they are. We haven't done the job that they're supposed to do, protect the interests of our people. So hopefully we'll do a little bit tonight. We'll try to, make our contribution to the work.
All right. Also, and then the elder of the night, and I got to thank this brother for inviting us up here. It's not many folks that want to invite us. I mean, I could have come, but then when Brian said he wanted to come, I thought that would do us in for good. But Brother Robert, being like Brother Robert is, always looking to stir up something.
Absolutely.
We want to thank Brother Robert for inviting us, and that's the knowledge gangster at Black Liberation Radio, Brother Robert X.
Yes, sir. Well, I'd just like to thank you and Brother Brian and Brother Niamah and Brother Randy for allowing me the opportunity to get to know you brothers, because I've always tried to include folk outside of what you might hear on the voice of the Negro. I've always attempted to include people in everything that it is that I do, before I know that I can't change the condition of black folk singularly. But I also know singularly none of you can do it. But I also believe at the same time that through a process of elimination, where we get as much information as we possibly can, and we eliminate that which is not good for us, it's just like eating, as you mentioned earlier, Brother Mbanna, and we digest that which is good for us. I think that we can only grow stronger as a people. And if we are in fact going to truly represent, the brothers out west represent, brothers on the east side represent. And you hip hoppers understand what I'm talking about. This is about representation. And I think that one of the things that I've seen relative to public housing is the fact that many people are being misrepresented. We've had people who subsequently have come out and run out in front of things where we, based on the information, were able to kind of forecast the things that were going to come down the road. We clearly saw them and told the people in the public housing system, Lorna, that one of the things that we were going to see was them begin to lock in people in public housing, such that now when the headline comes out today, CHA sweeps plan set, and then they tell you that they want to fence off wrought iron fences around public housing. I submit to you that you are next. Yours won't be wrought iron fences, and they will in fact be cul-de-sacs. I think Brother Brian has some information relative to cul-de-sacs and what's going on in Ohio. Brother Brian?
Well, brother, yeah, they definitely cul-de-sac in Ohio. They had this plan a couple of years ago called Operation Ace, brother, where they would just send, the old slave patrol down in the neighborhoods and just stop all traffic going in and out, and just stop brothers, fresco, search them, build them that database, that police file.
That's right.
Because after all, they know that as the U.S. defines it, you can't have political oppression or a repressive government until you have a database, computerized database.
That's right.
So they want to make sure they're full-fledged dictators or oppressors.
Right.
Build up that database with brothers. And also, we got here a Covert Action Information Bulletin. If you never heard of it, the magazine or journal now is actually Covert Action Quarterly. We got the summer 1992 edition where they interviewed Brother Mike Davis, and I see Brother Robert has his book over there.
Wait. Did you say Brother Mike Davis?
Oh, I'm sorry. Whoa. We won. Good white source. Mike Davis. Sorry, got excited being around all this genius.
Let's give a little background here. First of all, y'all, there's 3,300 public housing authorities in the criminal enterprise called the United States. Isn't that a little Masonic? Anyway, 3,300. That's right. Big Neff Brzezinski made a statement about what was the number one threat. I think, Brother Randy, you know that. The number one threat to the New World Order, according to Brzezinski.
Black urban uprising. In
Black
his book,
urban
Out of Control. His book, Out of Control. And his latest book came out in 93.
Okay, y'all dig that?
Yeah.
Y'all dig that? Okay, did y'all hear that?
Yeah.
The number one threat to the New World Order is not no BMW.
That's right.
Driving Negro with a suit on, right?
That's right.
So they got the number one threat is the little bitty brother on the corner that can't be talked to, right?
Well, brother, they also said that back in that study commissioned by your good friend Jimmy Carter. But
Robert's good friend, he's old enough.
yeah. science in
I was
that
in class
report.
with him.
Global 2000, brother, where they talked about there would be uncontrollable groups of people, in masses, particularly talking about, the so-called third world, which is the first world, actually. And talking about how, there would be groups that they just couldn't control. And I think that...
Wait a minute. What you're telling Global 2000 is 1978, brother. Mr. Clinton said this is a new thing in response to new violence that you Negroes are waging.
Clinton knows it ain't. He knows it isn't new because at Georgetown he was taught by Carol Quigley, who we all know, is down with the secret society crew. But basically, it's nothing new. The New World Order is the same old order that they've been pumping for the last 200 or so years in so-called America.
That's right. Call it New World Order, same old lies, huh?
That's right, bro.
Well, brothers and sisters, I think that's the point that needs to be kept in mind by everybody. This is not a response to recent activity in the community. No. The recent activity in the community is to legitimize what they're doing right now. Well, Brother Mwatta, you got that code reaction information quarterly magazine. You done waved it around in front of the people. You ain't told nobody what's in it, brother.
Well, brother, I'm about to, brother. Aren't those gang colors you wearing, brother? Well, you're a black man. Well, you look rather suspicious to me.
I should. I'm pretty good.
That's right. But Mike Davis says on page 17, he says, it is now clear that one of the main functions of the anti-gang dragons, such as the LAPD's Operation Hammer, has been to create a rap sheet on virtually every young black male in the city. Data are not simply being kept on people arrested, but rather people are being detained solely in order to generate new data.
That's right.
Right? He says, thanks to massive street sweeps, the gang roster maintained by the LAPD and sheriffs has grown from 14,000 to 150,000 files in over the last 5 years.
Wait a minute.
This is 1992.
5
He's
years.
talking.
From how many to what?
From 14,000 to 150,000.
That's damn near everybody in L.A. County, ain't it, bro?
Well, yeah, brother, that was 2 years ago.
Well,
And he says, this accumulation has allowed the district attorney, Ira Reiner, to make the hyperbolic claim that 47% of all young black males in L.A. County are active gang members.
that's right.
Needless to say, these files are not only employed in identifying suspects, but have also become a virtual blacklist.
Keep in mind, brothers and sisters, that they don't get no money on the local level unless they develop these type of programs.
Right.
In fact, a little brother told me the other day, it's actually about a year ago, went to jail. They said, well, what gang you belong to? He said, a gang? I'm not in no gang. And they kicked his ass. They said, now, what gang you in? He said, Egypto, and then they put him in a cell. They're developing gang members simply for the federal dollars. They won't give them no money to feed nobody. They won't give them no money to house nobody. They won't give them no money to clothe nobody. But if they want to kick your ass, they get paid. That's right. Now, why did they go after the people in the inner city? Because those are the ones who have nothing to lose. They have nothing to lose. And guess what? More important than that, they know it. That's right. You got nothing to lose either. They got one thing on you. They know it. That's right. Brother Randy, you want to add some information to this discussion?
Sure. 3 points I'd like to make concerning the program that you're discussing. The program that you're talking about is called GREAT. It's known as GREAT in California. In Mike Davis' book, City of Ports, he talks about the GREAT program. According to, let's see, information that I checked, it was in the Final Call newspaper less than a month and a half ago. GREAT is an acronym for, I want to make sure because, you know how they are, they always saying, well, you niggas are always making up stuff. So we're going to see it. The source, let's see, I want to make sure. It was in the Final Call newspaper, March 16, 1994, on page 24. GREAT is an acronym that stands for the Gang Reporting, Evaluation, and Tracking System. And SORT is an acronym for the Statewide Organized Gang Database System. And what it does is a computerized tracking system that identifies African youth with gangs. And all you have to do to be a member of the so-called gang, okay, or be suspected of being a gang member, is wear baggy pants, starter jacket, Nike gym shoes. Brother Mbanna, you're in trouble. You already dressed. You already dressed the part. All you have to do is basically wear certain clothes, jewelry, like the big clock, like that clown Flavor Flav of Public Enemy. Enemy, right?
He is the public's enemy, ain't he?
Yes, he is. And this system is set up basically to create jobs for little white boys and girls who basically have been screwed over by their own people because of the consolidation and merging of the various institutions. Yes. Many businesses have been closed because of NAFTA and GAP, because of the passing of these various financial agreements, because they're not really a tract or agreement. I don't know why they would call it
Brother
agreement.
Randy, are you suggesting that these new rules and regulations they laying down are really NAFTA and GATT?
Yes.
It ain't
This is all
got
part
nothing.
of-
Wait a minute. It ain't got nothing. Bill Clinton's got a crime bill, though, Brother Randy.
Well, according to Bill Clinton's crime bill, or whatever, you know, if you study the crime bill close, you know, especially when it talks about predicate gang members, predicate gang wars, predicate gangs, it talks about people, 4 or 5 people, okay, just meeting together, whatever, can be classified, defined as a gang. So, you know, this is part of their global Operation Weed and Seed program. They basically developed a global police force called the Multi-Jurisdictional Task Force.
That's right.
And their job is basically to interrogate people, to knock down the doors, separate people, separate the children from their parents,
Wait,
okay, brothers from their sisters.
We're going to have to get a source on that, brother.
Okay, well, I got to give Nexus.
Nexus
Magazine.
Nexus.
Okay, February, March, 1994, Nexus Magazine.
As a matter of fact, if I might,
Go ahead, brother.
let me
Throw it out.
give you a little bit here of what it says here. This is Nexus, 92, February, March 1994. It says here that the multi-jurisdictional task force is in virtually every state of the Union of the United States at this time. Its primary mission is house-to-house search and seizure, separation and categorization of men, women, and children in large numbers, the transfer to detention facilities, and the use of those facilities for interrogation purposes. The multi-jurisdictional task force are regular National Guard, local law enforcement, and street gangs converted to National Police Service.
The whole thing is designed to kill off the street gangs, brother.
Would you repeat that last sentence again?
The multi-jurisdictional task force are regular National Guard, local law enforcement, and street gangs converted to National Police Services. This was originally organized under George Herbert Walker Bush. Clinton has proposed it by another name. They go on to say the multi-jurisdictional task force police are supported through strategic reserve aircraft transferred to their resources. They will convert almost all of the existing local police agencies to national police forces after they've lifted personnel they do not consider trustworthy, and they will also incorporate street gangs.
Y'all heard the recent discussion out of New York about the dope thing?
Yes.
You know what they're doing?
Yes.
They're cleaning out the department.
Weed and seed.
That's right. Cleaning out all those that cannot be trusted. I think already you clearly see that what's going on in the CHA and any other public housing authority anywhere in this country ain't a result of recent activity. You create a multi-jurisdictional task force in 1989, and then all of a sudden, oops, they got something to do? No. They created them with this in mind.
Also, brothers, let's just give them some white establishment sources on this. From the Los Angeles Times, February 6, 1992, pages B1, it says FBI reassigns 22 agents to gang task force. Also, Los Angeles Times, December 28, 1991, page A1, FBI may shift resources to domestic crime. So basically what they're telling you is that we pulling agents to cover you.
That's right.
That's right. Because the number one threat to the New World Order is urban unrest. You never let them fool you into thinking you're not going to go to their schools and get educated to take nothing from them.
Well, brother, you know, I came here to Westside Books at my very first meeting I came here. I met a brother who told me about the underground police departments, and he had firsthand knowledge of them. And we didn't, we talk, we hear these things flowing through the wind, but it's very rarely that we'll get somebody to come before us and say that they not only know about it, but they can tell you where the things are, okay? And that's when I first met Brother Niamah, who put me in tune with just what the hell was going on with a lot of these buildings you see with the big, large fences around it, but ain't no name on the outside of the fences, and when you see the trucks and things inside the fence, there are no names on the trucks. So I say, well now, Brother Niamah, what the hell is going on the west side with underground police stations?
And south side.
Yeah.
Couldn't be talking to me, could you?
That's right. Yes, sir.
Well, first, if we could just digress just a moment and go back to something that every one of the panelists mentioned. And I thought it was interesting that you brought up the New World Order issue. The interesting thing about the New World Order and the Multi-International Security Force or Task Force is that Bush, through esoteric statements and symbolisms, made it widely known during some of his speeches when he was telling the world 1,000 points of light. 1,000 points of light. Now, anyone that's familiar with the scriptures or masonry and other things know that you are trying to contact and inform people that you are worshiping Lucifer.
That's right.
Now, this task force was set up in 1989. Recall, if you will, black people, because we have, I call it Vernon Jarrett's disease. Alzheimer's. We forget. Reflect back to 1990 and 1991, the summers respectively, and you will recall in your memory bank some rioting.
That's right.
You will recall some blackouts.
That's right.
The blackouts took place approximately 6 months after this task force was set in place because they was watching and studying us again to see how you would react.
That's right.
They also had certain tests, let's say pilot test programs going on to where they would set up mock riots.
1992.
Yes, sir.
Rodney
Which was,
King,
yes,
right?
sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
that's right.
Which was in fact a stage mock riot. Some people call it a riot, some say a rebellion. That's neither here nor there right now. But for the sake of this discussion and conversation, what we should focus on is, again, what Mr. Clinton said last week. He said, if you, he didn't say if us, he said, if you have 300 shootings again this weekend, I will enact the security force.
That's right.
Now, Brother Randy mentioned an acronym. I have an acronym I want you to think about. FEMA. FEMA. Federal Emergency Management Agency.
If I might, brother.
Yes, you can.
Y'all think about this. 300 calls in a weekend about some shooting. Okay, now what didn't they tell you? How many of those calls actually turned out to mean anything?
That's right. That's
And
right.
you mean 3 people got shot and there were 300 shooters?
That's right.
Y'all got some bad shooting, blind shooting motherfuckers up here. Nobody shoot up here. I mean, seriously, think about that. No, it's all about the media and their drama. Again, already it's been documented that there is nothing that they're doing today that has not already been planned. So now what they got to do, they got to create stories to match it.
Manufacture of Christ.
On the way up here, Dia was reading me an article out our local paper, their local paper, we call it the State Urinal Register. Okay? They invented an 8-year-old getting shot at a bus stop in December. And I think they just got hung up on the Dan Terrell Davis thing, where they shot Dan Terrell Davis just in time for Clinton to conduct a campaign rally where the march against Dan Terrell's murder ended up right at his march.
That's right.
Isn't it something how they found the 19 children just in time for Al Gore to come to town?
That's right.
Don't y'all get it?
With Bobby Rush.
Don't you get it? Don't you get it? I mean, it's nothing new. It's nothing. You know what it's going to take us? It's going to take us being men and women enough to review this information and acting like we got some sense.
I want to go one step further than that.
Go ahead.
I submit this because, see, history repeats itself. And the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. So what the brother has spoken is absolutely correct. We are repeating history again. And what you see before you is the same scenario that ancient Israel had in Egypt, that ancient Israel had under the time of Herod the Great. What is going to happen is we will wake up once you are incarcerated and you look across from each other behind fences and barbed wires. And not until then. Not until then. I submit that out of love and humility. Because see, truthfully, by nature, we have a lot of scholarly people and those who love us, who inform us correctly and well. And when Martin King came to us originally, we rejected him. It wasn't until the so-called Negro establishment and mainstream got on the bandwagon that Martin became acceptable. So now, this information that we are presenting to you is nothing new. This is something many of us been saying for years. But we're going to have to fall up under the rod.
Go ahead. Already now. Right out here, Summit, Illinois. Go serve. You know how they get the children in town, in the house at night? The air raid siren. At 10 o'clock, the children get an air raid on where you are. Some neighborhoods are already under them, and they're testing all up and down the line. They got 3,300 public housing authorities across the country, and this is where they do most of the testing, because everybody's been conditioned to think that anybody in public housing deserves it. I got to tell y'all, Black Liberation Radio exists in public housing,
Right.
and couldn't exist if it wasn't for public housing. I'm telling you right now, everything that, like Brother just said, everything that's happening right now has happened before. What you do with this information that's going to be uncovered tonight here is up to you. All we're interested in doing is relieving ourselves of the responsibility of knowing. I don't care what you do with it. I used to get upset at night when people say,
Yes, sir.
man, you take that information, you stick it up your ass.
Yes, sir.
Well, now I don't even care if you say that about me. You do with it what you will. But I guarantee you this, you will have been told.
That's right.
And when your ass feel the heat,
That's right.
you will have to answer your Creator as to why your ass is in the trouble you're in, when you heard in time.
Yes, sir.
Brother Randy, I know you got some stuff you want to add.
Well, a few things I want to add to Brother Niamah was talking about earlier concerning FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which was created around 1978 according to the Army War paper that I have over here. I'll share it with y'all later, give you the source or anything like that, maybe big copies available. But what I also want y'all to get is this book, Blood, Carnage, and the Age of Provocateur. The truth about the Los Angeles riots and the secret war against LA minorities. I'm opposed to that term, minority. I don't like that term. Alice Constantine is author. Okay, and he talks about how there were certain people that was involved in helping provoke certain action, so they could test their ideals. See, what they do basically is that according to the multi-jurisdictional task force, see what they have is mount areas. These are areas where they go and field test their ideals. They set up like a markup. They have these phony buildings, and what they do is they have people. They simulate. These are places where they go to simulate. Okay, where they see if they can respond, and once they do this, once they practice, it becomes like second nature. And also, give you information on FEMA. FEMA is located 175 West Jackson Boulevard on the 4th floor. The executive director was Joanne Monford. Okay, and it's right below the Census Bureau is located on the 5th floor. Okay. Oh yeah, the Census Bureau. See, that's where you get that's where they get all the information. They provide, and the FBI is located at Dearborn, right? 219 South Dearborn, room 905. Okay, and the director was Delbert Dilbeck. Before that was James McKenzie. Okay.
Hey,
So,
excuse me for my, y'all, what do y'all think the census is for? Counting people? Anybody ever seen one of the census forms?
Never.
What does asking where your doors on your house have to do with counting you?
That's right.
that's right.
And my question is, what is the purpose of a birth certificate?
Well,
Doesn't it tell you arrived?
well,
And then the death certificate tells when you leave, right?
brother,
You're not here. Death certificate, I mean, you still in.
right, and if you don't got no birth certificate, you ain't never got here.
Right.
Because they must validate your existence. The whole thing, you got to keep in mind, brothers and sisters, out of all the speeches you've heard, out of all the songs you've heard, have you heard anybody talk to you about the rights that you were born with? Huh? Has anybody ever told you about the rights you were born with? No. Every time somebody talking to you, they're talking to you about some rights that some dog done gave you. Well, what's the significance of that? Then that dog or any other dog can take them right back. But they never tell you about the rights you're born with. Oh, by the way, they call human rights. That's right. And if you don't know about them, okay, you think only rights you got is the ones that somebody gives you. That's very important because that's how we live our lives, waiting for them to validate our existence.
That's right.
Well, brother, also having studied 3 years in the white man's law school, I can tell you that the way he set it up anyway, it was designed so he could take those rights back anyway because he added them on as amendments. And an amendment can be repealed at any time.
And keep in mind, NAFTA is in full effect. And what does the Constitution say about something overriding it? A treaty? Is that a treaty? And did you hear yesterday that they signed the GATT treaty? Okay, all this, Clinton ain't wrote a damn thing. That little faggot, he ain't wrote nothing. This is NAFTA, this is GATT. And what they have to do is come on every little area and convince you that something happened in your town to cause this to go on.
That's right.
That's what they do. Daley's running one line, and somebody in our town run another line, somebody in Columbus running another line, but the bottom line is it's the New World Order, it's the same old line.
That's right.
That's true. And the last piece I want to add, and I'll be real, as brief as possible, because I know I am sometimes.
No, sometimes.
Don't get me started now. At from the Army War College in Carlisle Barracks, Pennsylvania. This piece is by Robert A. Frizzo. Our governmental agencies prepare for the civilian workforce losses that would occur during mobilization. Okay, I got this a few years ago. Now on page 4, it talks about FEMA on page 4. In 1978, Congress passed Reorganization Plan Number 3, creating the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. FEMA was to be a single agency responsible for preparedness. Yeah, right. It was created by merging 5 agencies from the Department of Defense, Commerce, Housing and Urban Development, and General Services Administration. The reorganization plan specifically gave FEMA responsibility for emergency manpower planning. There's another group that works with them called the State Defense Forces.
But Robert, you want to read the article in the same nexus about the power of FEMA being the most powerful organization in the world?
Hold on.
Okay, you said the power's out? Let me see. Okay, it's like this. Is it on now?
Camera's still.
Okay.
Okay, you got to watch that.
Yeah, watch that, man.
They tested us again, Mike.
Okay, now.
Blackout.
Yeah. Let me give you a little something here to kind of add to what Randy was just saying relative to FEMA. But I think that it's important to note that FEMA and the multi-jurisdictional task force don't work alone. They work in conjunction with something called FinCEN. That's the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. And what they want to be able to do, which is what you'll begin to see everywhere, if you haven't already saw it, is they will begin to put everything in the computer, and everybody in the computer. That's why Clinton wants to come with his national health care plan, where you get the universal health care card, which will be about maybe that thick. When they hold it up, it makes it look like it's a regular little plastic bendable card, right? Where all the data that they want on your card, anything that can be added, will be put on this card. I wish I had the article here which would be able to show you how they have the capacity now by way of the barcodes that I know Niamah can expand on in terms of its representation. But they got enough information now with the technology to put Encyclopedia Britannica on 3 or 4 of them little strips that you see on everything that you buy and sell. These things here, these barcodes, okay? Everything. And they want to be able to basically determine what you say, when you say, how you say it. They buttering you up with things or phrases called politically correct. Where did it come from? Or do they really mean word perfect in terms of computer technology? Okay? PC, personal computer. Okay, so they're interchanging words here with doublespeak that Orwell told us about some time ago. But this stuff is so dangerous that many times you would have no idea that it's upon you until it's right there upon you. And I'm telling you that it's all over the place now. So
speaking of the language, if you rent the movie Demolition Man, you'll notice that they talk in computer terminology only.
Right. Well, let me give you a little bit of this so I can sweep this back to our Black Liberation Radio host. Here's what they go on to say. They say here that a truce was signed by most of the large gangs in the city of LA. At the time, there were negotiations in process in Chicago. And this was also taking place in New York. By the way, did you know that Prince Asiel, Ben Israel, and the Hebrew Israelites got more than $700,000 to start a school from the federal government of this country in Israel?
That's right. What the hell is
Now, and then you wonder why it is that he's down there heading the game situation.
That's right.
Now, if they tell you that they're recruiting gang members,
Right.
who in the hell are the recruiters?
Right.
Okay? Look now. Look now. We're going to get to that. They say at the time that these things were taking place in Chicago, and this was also taking place in New York. Since the initial actions, a full agreement has been signed in LA, and both the Crips and the Bloods are now being trained, equipped, and uniformed with federal funding through California. Chicago has has finalized this agreement last week. New York is currently in the process.
Now think about the significance of this, y'all. They are tearing up neighborhoods looking for these gangbangers.
Right.
They ain't putting to work none of the innocent folks.
Right.
They ain't doing nothing for the innocent folks, but they're going out getting those who they said they were out to rid the neighborhood of, and they put them to work to terrorize you.
Demolition Man.
Is that why they got a music video?
Well, hey, look, I want all y'all out there to feel free to interact, because, you know, this is something different. This is different than ever. What we want to do is establish something different. Many times people come and talk to you, I mean at you, but we want to talk with you.
Also, brothers, you were talking about the health care card. There's an article from the Hastings Center report, December 1993 edition, pages 13 to 23. And I don't have all these articles with me because I flew and I didn't have room for all of them. But anyway, it says, the name of the article is Smart Card, Smarter Policy, Medical Records, Privacy, and Healthcare Reform. Basically what the sister, I don't know if she's a sister, could be a white girl. Anyway, what she's talking about in the article is that, their sister, whatever, Kay's sister. Anyway, she says that she points out that because people move so often, like sometimes you can move, like especially students, move to another state and not change your driver's license and not change, update all your records, so they don't have you, they can't track you on the computer. But with this national health care card, they have you there. They have your whole medical history. They're probably going to have your fingerprints, everything else on there. So when you go apply for a job, they ain't going to want that social security number, that, your ID, birth certificate, none of that. They're just going to hand over the card, let us put it in a reader, and find out all about you. And they can track you that way, because anywhere you go, you're going to need it. They got these debit cards for you. Oh, awfully convenient that you have these debit cards. You don't need cash.
That's right.
Because we can track all of your transactions. And this whole thing about being computerized so they can track you around the country. Go ahead.
Brother Robert, I want to make sure that we are on the same wavelength here. Are you saying actually that it's possible that this, what's the brother's name, Prince ICL?
Yes, sir.
This other, well, they go by the acronym, the Prince and the Preacher. These other pontificating, camera searching out, photo opportunity.
Brother, they made a movie in the 60s, and it was by them. You may have seen it. It's called Buck and the Preacher.
Is it possible that because of some federal funding on the other end of the spectrum, this is why they're out there in front of the people?
Brother,
Absolutely.
that is in fact, the crime bill states, and I have parts of it right here, that much of the monies that are going to be coming down the pipe under the guise of ridding the community of crime can in fact be used any way the particular recipient of those funds chooses to do so. Midnight basketball, paying off ministers so that Joe Gardner can run for mayor and David can get reelected, or hiring police forces through connections that Joe Gardner has with the security agency that Minister Louis Farrakhan's security forces, New Light Inc., are subcontracting through, where we subsequently found that the week after the election, Farrakhan was coming out here talking about voters registration. Let me point something out to you here. The primary way that the Jewish people or the powers that be certify whether you're still on a plantation is by two means. One is through housing and restricting you to have any, and that's why they worked on it in your behalf, allegedly, during the 60s. And the other is voter registration, which is why they were all down south making sure that they got the Negroes registered to vote to make sure that you are still, in terms of your mind, under control. And as long as you have given some kind of phony idea that you think that you are electing somebody, then you in fact will think that you elected somebody. And just to add, Brother Brian, to what you just got through putting out, to show you how this is not just a local thing, this is the Sunday Telegraph, October 24th, 1993. Major, talking about John Major, wants ID cards to cut fraud. Prime Minister changes heart to back police crime fight.
Sound like GAT, don't it?
Yes, sir. Now look down. What other piece?
One great big happy worldwide cave.
That's right. Washington Post, September the 6th, 1993, 1 month prior to this one. Why not a national ID card? Okay, that's right. In South Africa was just a test case. Okay? Apartheid, we've already lived here in apartheid basically all our lives. And to the past laws up until the early 60s. We were subject to we going back to those days. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, you know, the information, brothers and sisters, this is what we want to present to you. And at the same time you're listening to the information, if there's somebody out there claiming that they're trying to help you liberate yourself from what it is that's oppressing you, ask yourself, why didn't they give it to you? Because you can't be liberated waiting for a speech every Sunday.
That's right. That's right.
Uh-oh.
That's right. Can I piggyback on that?
Go ahead.
I don't use the word kid.
Be my guest.
In reference to the National Health Card and smart cards, we were informed of this coming down the pipe thousands of years ago. In Revelation 13, it says, know that at that time no man might buy or sell, unless he have the number, the name, or the mark of the beast. Now here's wisdom. That he that hath understanding count the number of the beast. We all know it is 666. It doesn't take real wisdom to count 3 sixes. But it takes wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to know what the mark is. The mark, I submit to you, is here. You use it every day. It is called the universal product code. You cannot go into any store anywhere in the world and buy anything without the UPC. And I submit to you, those of you who are in business or entrepreneurs, you cannot sell anything, whether it's music or anything, without the UPC. Also, let's take and be mindful of this. Since we mentioned Demolition Man, and anybody see the movie Fortress? If you didn't, go rent it. But let's go back to the movie 2001. Real briefly. In Brussels, there's a computer that has every one of our names in it. It has the number and capacity of 8 billion people, and there's not 8 billion people on the planet. It is called the Beast. But properly or technically it's called IBM 366.
That's right.
Go to the movie 2001, and in the movie they called the computer HAL 366.
That's right.
Again, they're using letters. H is the letter.
Absolutely.
Huh? If you take H and you go up one letter before or after H, you have what? I. If you take A and you go up a letter after I, you have what? D. And you take L, you go up a letter.
Absolutely.
M. HAL 366, I submit to you, is IBM 366. What is going to usher the system in is that the gangbangers, the dope dealers, and others are going to force Mr. Clinton's hands and others to enact FEMA, known as King Alfred also.
That's right.
And when they enact this, what will take place is that they will set in place a brand new economic system for you.
That's right.
You will accept the brand new economic system because the hype is it's going to alleviate dope trafficking. How? Ain't going to be no cash, no money.
That's right.
You're going to have a card.
That's right.
Number 2, it's going to alleviate fraud. How? Ain't going to be no money.
That's right.
It's going to alleviate robbery. How? No, there's a card. No money. It's going to alleviate everything, so on the surface it's going to look good. But underneath, they're going to implant you with something in your right hand and your forehead. And understand and know this, before you accept it on the physical plane, you done already accept it on the spiritual. Because the beast is already in your hand and on your forehead.
Yes, sir. That's right.
So, brother.
Oh, boy.
Another brother over here.
I would like, in mentioning barcode, Brother Niamah, I think that you should be aware that even the U.S. mails, the postal system is also has barcode.
That's right.
Elder, may I submit this to you out of respect and humility to everyone here, that not only does the U.S. mail have it stamped on it, but bond receipts in police stations have it stamped on it. It's on the back of your new driver's license. Anybody who goes to the UIC, they deal commerce and economics with a card now. There's one sister that called me from Southern Illinois and said, you know, Nehemiah, we don't even use cash anymore.
That's
here.
right.
You can go into Florida and purchase your gas by using a smart card.
That's right.
They are all been implemented in Europe. They are not even using what you call currency anymore. They're using an EC unit.
That's right.
With on the front of the paper is a woman.
That's right.
Riding a beast.
That's right.
with horns.
That's right. The
A
harlot.
red beast.
That's right.
The whole
Scholar.
Babylon. That's right.
That's right.
There it is right
There
there.
it is. Come on with it, man.
And the barcode should be on the paper.
Oh, yeah. And absolutely.
This is from The Prince of Darkness by Jeffrey R. Grant. The Antichrist of the New World Order. Of course, it's by the white boys. Huh?
That's right.
Okay. Well, make sure I get it back, y'all, okay?
Well, matter of fact, here, see, like minds and spirits
That's
gravitate
right.
together.
That's right.
So y'all pass that. I know what page it's on there because I'm just getting over shit.
Brothers and sisters, I mean, clearly you see, I mean, you got these cards coming. I mean, the intent is to limit your movement. One point I want to make here, keep in mind when you talk about economy, okay? Economics. I hear people talk about economics. Economy is only the means in which a society decides it's going to divide up the wealth.
Right.
That's all it means. And you have not been cut in. In fact, you have been cut out.
Exactly.
Because all the shit they dividing up is yours.
You the sport.
Also, you know, someone mentioned the term movement earlier. We need to understand that all of this is about limiting your movement also. Basically, you're going to be comfortable prisoners. That's why they have QVC.
That's right.
You know, because they're just preparing you for the day when you're going to have a refrigerator outside your house with 2 locks on it. One on the inside, one on the outside. And you just call up, order your groceries.
That's right.
You know,
Are they doing that anywhere yet?
well, brother, I think they're test marketing it right now.
In Baltimore?
That's right.
Right.
Kurt Smoke?
Right.
Good old roll scholars.
All you do, pick up the phone, say you want XXYZ.
Friend of New Life Security.
All you do is pick up the phone and call and tell them what you want. They deliver it from the outside. You never see the delivery man.
That's right.
When you open your icebox, it's there. Just because they love you.
That's right. Also, this whole crime scare thing, when they get you scared to go outdoors, is all about the same thing.
That's right.
Where they get you so scared that you want to stay in the house.
That's right. And keep,
Someone's go out.
and keep in mind, y'all, everybody saying, well, we're going to have to get together to stop this stuff. I will submit to you tonight that we're already together.
That's
But
right.
the only damn thing we do together is get our ass kicked.
Right.
Why don't we stay together and do some ass kicking?
That's right.
Because we are together when we get whooped.
That's right.
Brother Randy and Brother Robert, could you address you're talking about money and commerce, could you address the secret society
Or undress.
yeah,
Undress.
called the Fed and its impact with the World Monetary Fund and the World Bank?
That private corporation.
So since we're not going to have any money, what are they going to do?
Basically, I'm trying to get the document for you. I have a document that's right in my bag. Well, so I'm going to I'm serious. I got a document. You mentioned the secret society.
Well, basically, the Federal Reserve is a private corporation.
Right.
And if you check the Constitution, it says nobody make money but who?
Congress.
Congress. Now, you hear all these politicians running around here talking about doing what? Removing what? The debt. Well, how do you get money if the Congress don't make it? How do they get it? They borrow it. So is there any way to get rid of the debt unless they print it themselves? No. They can't get rid of the debt unless they print the damn money themselves.
That's right.
So the politicians is all in cahoots on this lie with you.
Not only that, but it makes it almost impossible. I mean, the debt will never be paid. But I think the more broader aspect to your question relative to the connections between the Federal Reserve, the secret societies, and the world monetary system, I think that when you go back and look at the founding of the Federal Reserve, we can document that the Federal Reserve was basically set up by Jewish bankers. It's interesting to note that these were, in fact, the same people who backed that off Hitler. I'm talking about the Schiffs, the Warburgs, the Kuhn-Loebs, and these people. But I think that the more underlying thing to all of even that, the Council of Foreign Relations, is the fact that the system came primarily from Europe via the Council of Foreign Relations for the Rothschilds. For them to, in fact, based on the fact that they had taken over South Africa and they wanted to basically put the world, the international money system, on the gold standard once they had cornered the market such that they were able to go underneath everybody to use the politicians to, in fact, take over all aspects of what might be termed commerce, where we subsequent to that saw them put in place to bring between the Soviet Union and the other so-called people who were against the monetary system, the Japanese and the Germans. We saw the Axis powers then come in and create the IMF and the World Bank after World War II, where they wanted to put other countries in a position where they would have to be in reliance on the U.S. dollar. That became the international medium of exchange, okay? So that what they're doing is giving substance to that which they deem valuable. And if they can get you to subscribe to it, then you have already lost. This is why it's ultimately important for black people to understand that there is no value in things. I don't care if it's green things or blue things. None of those things. This has no value. This is only legal as long as the beast is able to operate. When the beast loses his grip, just as the junior beast, Adolf Hitler, lost his grip, then the capital that the Germans had was no longer any good.
Hey, ask those white folks in Russia about those rubles they were saying.
That's right. And I'll add to that, because I made some really good points. There's an excellent book called Tragedy and Hope by Carol Quigley. It deals with the various secret societies and how they interlock with these various financial institutions. I have the book right here. He wrote another book called Anglo-American Establishment, which I think he wrote this before he wrote the Tragedy and Hope, which deals with the establishment of the various secret societies to protect the wealth and control the economic, social, and political structures not only this republic but the whole world. And so what they do, they are setting up. They have basically 3 different layers or 3 tiers. I try to identify 2 of them. One is called the Association of Helpers. That's the Council on Foreign Relations, the think tanks like the Rand Corporation, the Aspen Institute. Then they have their Negroes, they're like the Boule right here. It's mentioned right here in this article from the Los Angeles Times, July 18, 1990, pages E1 and E2. Los Angeles Times page, let me make sure that is the right page. I got to make sure. Let's see, page, I think it's on page 13, yes, E1, E2. July 18, 1990. In here, it mentions members of the secret society called Boule. Boule is a Greek word which means advisor to the king. Okay, and it was created in 1904 by some doctors and dentists in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is another interesting area that I've been to. I was there a few years ago. It's quite interesting. There's another book that you can get. It's called Secrets of the Temple by William Ryder that talks about the Federal Reserve, how the Federal Reserve runs the country.
There's another one called Secrets of the Federal Reserve by Eustace Mullins. They may be better than all of Ryder's book. Is just more pages, more symbolism, but less substance. Eustace Mullins, in his books, talks about the Rothschilds and their connections to George Bush and his family and the slave trade, and he traces the whole thing and it's documented.
So I think that's no wonder that there's a guy named Greenspan over it.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Right. He's a member. See, Alan Greenspan's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, which was created, they say in 1922, but according to Carol Quigley, it was created around 1919.
That's
right. In his book, Tragedy and Hope, you always got to give the sources. The other groups were, the other entity I want to mention, that the other component, because I mentioned the Association of Helpers, the assistants, like the Colonel Howes, Henry Kissinger, and the various secret societies, that are kind of like linked to that. There are different ones, like Skull and Bones, which was created in 1832.
The outer circles.
Of which George Bush is a member, and I think David Bourne, the member of the Skull and Bones. There's another one called the Book and Cat Society, which Nicholas Brady is a member of, according to Covert Action Information Books.
Who is the ex-Treasury Secretary?
Absolutely. And then you have, there's some other books that I have here. There's another book that you get, it's called Trilateralism, Elite Planning for World Management, edited by Holly Starr. It talks about these other groups that are part of the secret society. But then I want to add the other component that I didn't add that goes with the Association of Helper that is in the book Tragedy and Hope by Carol Quigley. And that is the Circle of Initiates. That's right. That's what Brother Hamza Catlett, when he was here less than a month and a half ago, talking about that dot in the circle. See, that is what they're trying to protect, that dot in the circle. That's right. That circle, it basically is like a buffer group, the buffer friends. That is the part of the Association of Helpers. That's the buffer group. The Circle of Initiatives is ones who are part of those are the Habsburgs, the Rothschilds, those who control the economic political structure, and they're the same ones. I'm not sure if the Oppenheimer family in South Africa, Harry Oppenheimer, who's considered the David Rockefeller of South Africa, and you get this book, it's called South Africa Incorporated, and it lays out basically how these people control the bare diamonds, consolidated gold fields, how it got started. And there's another book called The Landlord that you can get. That's a really excellent book. And it lays out how, you know, the Krugerrands, et cetera. And it's a really excellent book. There's another book also called A Natural Alliance by James Adams that talks about the strange relationship between Israel and South Africa. And it lays out the whole relationship about the Oppenheimers with these various right-wing groups, you know, like Cecil Rhodes, how Cecil Rhodes, who was a Mason and also a homosexual, from the book Homosexual in History, that these, you'll find that basically that all these have, there's a pattern, there's a paradigm. You know, every time you find that these groups, when you track it down, who's at the nucleus or the center of it, is all these little old white men who are Masons and Shriners, like Henry Crown, who died several years ago. He was a Shriner and a Mason, controlled General Dynamics Corporation. And then you had these other, David Rockefeller, over in the 70s. He's the one who created the Trial Commission in 1973 with Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was the first director of the Trial Commission in 1973.
And I'm just going to add this one book before I throw it back to you, Brother Mbanna. And that is The Last Empire, De Beers, Diamonds, and the World by Stephen Camphor. This book was just written a few months ago, okay? The interesting thing about this book is it not only talks about the Oppenheimers, but it also talks about their connections with the wall. Their connections on Wall Street. Where when we get to the piece on South Africa, I'm going to show you something very interesting in terms of what these people are, or these anti-human beasts are already doing to basically make what Nelson Mandela and black people do in South Africa obsolete before they get started. It's already obsolete, and it hasn't even started yet. They give you the vote, they give you your so-called civil rights, and then you will effectively be null and void. One last little piece, and this is interesting. Doing some of my research, I just found this out 2 days ago. Anybody ever heard of Judge Higginbotham?
Yeah.
Judge Leon Higginbotham is a very key figure. You're right, Rand. He is in fact Boule. He is one of the Negroes who's over in South Africa right now, as we speak, supervising the election.
Hey, you know who else?
Dan West.
Kissinger.
Yeah, Kissinger was sit there as a that's a conduit.
You know who just got back?
Remember the Tar Baby study?
Now, y'all keep in mind.
He was the Tar Baby of all this stuff.
Y'all keep in mind that from the criminal enterprise that they call South Africa, 96% of the world's chrome is produced. 80% of the world's non-fuel minerals are produced. What in the hell was Mandela over here doing, taking your hard-earned money?
Right.
If there's real change coming to that land, then why wasn't he given a cut to run for office?
Uncle Nelson.
Well, if you go back there, my wife got a tape from Sister Maha Pico from the PAC, where she claims he never was even in prison.
That's
Yes,
right.
sir.
Say he was staying in the warden's house. Liked it so much that when he left the pretense of being in prison, he had a recreation of the warden's house made just for him and his white woman.
The master's house.
And tell them about the fax machine. The fax machine.
Access to
His what? Oh, you didn't know that?
Now here's a young 18-year-old white boy can leave wherever he was, okay, and go to South Africa and take everything that he wants. I'm talking about Cecil Rhodes. And you have these Negroes down here holding their heads up high, talking about they are Rhodes scholars.
Mel Rhodes.
Well, you know,
Clarence Thomas.
Go ahead.
Oh, he's not Rhodes.
I think
He's Rhodes Scholar.
White woman. What you mean white woman?
I think we got
Sister want that straightened out.
It got to be understood too when we talk about the whole secret society issue, that the whole criminal enterprise called the United States of America at its very inception was formed by a majority of nations.
That's right.
Even when they take the oath of office, even when they swear in Supreme Court justices, they're taking what is in fact an atomic oath, because when you look at the key words within the so-called U.S. oath, and I think, brother, was it you that pointed out that in Francis Scott Key's little song there, there was something about certain people who wouldn't be
The hireling
spared.
and the slave.
The hireling and the slave.
No refuge can save the hireling or slave.
That's right.
That's one of the verses of the national anthem.
Last Sunday on the local TV program here in Chicago, Channel 5, they had Vince Lane, who we all know and hate.
Vincent.
I'm sorry. Also, they had the police chief on there as well, the Hispanic / Polak. That was also on there. He also made the comment that they're taking the infrared technology is being used in CHA. And he's mentioned that on TV. And many of you have already heard, and we've already discussed it today, but here he is on TV saying that we're using infrared technology, and also that we can depend on more equipment coming from the Secret Service, since there's no longer the Russian bogeyman of the Cold War to rely on. So now they can take this equipment that was originally intended for the use against Russia, allegedly, in that phony so-called Cold War, and they're turning it right back around, as we discussed already. But here they're saying on TV, yesterday, the news focused on a sister living inside public housing who was proudly showing a picture, autographed picture of Henry Cisneros, who snuck into Chicago last week, spent a night in public housing, had a press conference over at B. Herbert Martin's church, the mayor's, the former reverend of the mayor, whatever, Harold Washington's pastor at the time. Now this sister is saying that Henry Cisneros has called her to brief her on what's going to happen with the suites in public housing, and she's glad that they're going to have the suites. And Brother Robert has said that they're going to use black women in public housing and elsewhere to justify and legitimize the type of action that
you better be careful. Don't say black women. Don't say black women. They're using black beasts. Okay, I'm telling you right now, they're not women. Most of the times they're messing with these faggots and these dykes. And I got documented proof every time they speak to one. You go find them. And you check their so-called lifestyle. And the reason why they choose them, because if you got no loyalty to what's between your legs, you got no loyalty to nothing.
I would just add, brother, that in the Futurist magazine for September, October,
we told y'all this is live and correct.
In the Futurist magazine for September, October 1993, very interesting. And who was that that said that they weren't going to have no pistols? Somebody said they weren't going to have no weapons. Were you just talking about that again? They didn't want people to have weapons, that the police weren't going to use weapons. Non-lethal weapons, alternatives to deadly force. Okay?
Well, that's why they kept, if you notice, excuse me for interrupting, but during that whole LA thing, they kept on focusing on that zap gun that they used on.
Taser.
You know, the
It's called a taser.
You know what they're using in court now? They call it the react belt. But check it out. You sitting in court, they say that they think you might raise a fuss in court about getting railroaded, which you will be getting railroaded. They said they got a remote control button they can push.
That's right.
Where for, check it out though, for 8 seconds you will receive 50,000 votes. No, listen, not long enough to make you sit back down, but long enough to punish you for thinking you had a right to speak out.
That's right.
8 seconds, 50,000 votes.
That's right. So, you know, I don't know about, you know, anybody else, but I don't hear a lot of this stuff when I go to the various conferences. And the question that I ask myself is why? You see, and I know a lot of you probably thought that I may have been a little harsh on my good friend the other night. In terms of, I said in other parts, in any other part that's connected to his back, all right? And I know he got that hump on the top of the other one. It ain't just his back. But this stuff is beyond games. We can sit here and laugh about the stuff now because we don't have to deal with it at this point. But I'm telling you, as sure as I'm sitting here, the stuff that these people got coming down the road, where they are in fact manufacturing crises to get you to react in a particular manner, these people are coming at you. They're coming at you because they understand who you are much better than you do. That's why they always study. How many studies have you seen been implemented by black folk, on black folk?
Right.
You see, what we need to be about the business of doing, which is why things are so open, is to begin to study ourselves. And the only way you can study yourself is through dialogue. In the church, they call it prayer, where you basically speak inwardly. Here, we only praying in unison by allowing ourselves to dialogue with each other, which can be considered verbal prayer. Because when the wife will come at our ass, I'll bet you, you're going to see Negroes praying, okay? Now, I'm telling you. I'm here to say that with this financial crimes enforcement network, if you mention money, if you mention words that have been deemed unacceptable in a political correct atmosphere, you will in fact be eligible for 3 strikes.
In fact,
and you're out.
Dig this. Under NAFTA, under GATT, you adopt the most restrictive and most repressive laws of the other members in the agreement.
That's right.
Have you ever heard about the free speech laws in Canada? Right now, everybody sitting here at this table and out there could be kidnapped right now and thrown in a cage for exactly what we're doing right here.
That's right.
According to the free speech laws of Canada, and you're not living under them.
Also, just one other thing, speaking of federal laws, RICO, which was originally supposedly set up for the so-called racketeers and mob people, now they're using it, and don't be fooled because they're using it against these right-wing people out here protesting these abortion clinics. They said that there doesn't have to be any money involved, even though this statute was set up to catch people who were using their money and who they couldn't catch any other way. They catch them by saying, okay, well, they floating all this money out here, so we'll use that to catch them. Now we can use it against anybody.
That's right.
Who's planning to do something that we don't agree with.
That's right.
Another point. Mexico. How many things they say in this country you can get the death penalty for? 51? Well, you get Mexico's rules now. 300. Name 5.
Throwing gun on the sidewalk.
You think of 300 things? There you go. That's the number 1.
That's number 1.
That's right. But you clearly see all these things that they're talking about doing to the communities. This ain't got nothing to do with what happened over in Robert Taylor.
Right.
This ain't got nothing to do with what happened in Cabrini Green, Henry Horner, John Hay in Springfield.
That's right.
It's got something to do with a program by those that know. Look, go back to, what's his name, George McKenna, 48, State Department planning staff. What'd he say? We got to find a way that we can keep stealing these niggas' stuff without them saying a damn thing about it.
That's right.
And they said, well, what are we going to do? And the answer came in Global 2000, killed their ass.
That's right.
And that's what it is. And that's all you dealing with today. They will dress it up and they will say, well, there was a shooting in Robert Taylor this week. But have y'all noticed all the shots that are fired by these so-called gangbangers? But when a brother falls dead, it's 1 bullet in the head.
That's right.
It's 1 bullet in the chest.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that? But there'll be 500 shots fired. And they had an incident in Springfield not too long ago. A brother named was Tracy Brown. No more than 6 hours out of prison, he gets shot 4 times in the chest in an alleged drive-by. Now think about it. Think about it now. Think about it. 4 times. Now if I shoot you once, your body's gonna do what? Start to move, ain't it?
Right.
If I'm already moving in a vehicle, I gotta be a damn good shot to follow your body to the ground and get 4 bullets in it, don't I? Before I get out. These are expert shots that are being put on y'all. CIA type. These multi-jurisdiction. These guys go practice, and it's a thing of pride to be on. And check out where these brothers, all these brothers are getting shot on revenge shootings. Why is it always in an open area?
That's right.
If I'm gonna revenge shoot you, it's gonna be where me and you know.
That's right.
Hey, they're gonna cut the shots. They're gonna cut the shots.
In a private, remote area. Never.
This brother's had his hand up back here for quite a while.
I'll just be very brief. I want to take something with what Brother Robert X said also on the esoteric New Age in terms of taking the guns out of the hands of police from the Emergence 1993, which is a paper that's been set on the path to present Mr. Maitreya to the world. He's called it the science of light, by which at any point in the world, once they disarm you, if you're even thinking about doing harm to someone, a beam of light's going to come from the sky and do you a number.
Last night they introduced a new video game. They're going to quiet all the noise of the bullets. They're going to start using archery. Did anybody see that? Last night I just happened to see the news, and they were using a new game that they have, a video game, and it's an archery game. So it's going to be a quiet death now. Because
Make it ABM.
they light up an animal in the most vital spots. It was
You mean
two
like
spots.
Ice-T?
Right.
Animal like that?
Archery. Right.
Chasing
And they're teaching everybody how to shoot.
Y'all think about this.
You do a quiet stuff.
They're proposing down there in that criminal operation called the Illinois State Legislature that they ban 94 different kind of assault weapons. Name 10. You go find what they call a gangbanger and have him name 5.
You can't do it.
They don't know. You see what I'm saying? It's a game being ran.
Right.
It's a game. Look, anybody got a copy of Chancellor Williams' book?
I do.
Got page 239.
He would have. I got all the books in the
Page 239. 239, brother. The last couple of paragraphs on that page. See, one of the things we've talked about Vince Lane tonight, we've talked about the Boulay tonight, and we've talked about these so-called gangbangers tonight. But see, brothers and sisters, one of the things we need to deal with is that this battle that we're engaged in is a battle of good versus evil.
Check.
Chancellor Williams pointed it out a long time ago. Y'all like Chancellor Williams, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
What did it say in that last couple paragraphs, brother, about those kings over there in Africa?
It says here that the blacks, as usual, on page 239,
Yep.
the blacks, as usual, were too busy fighting among themselves to mark the heralds of their doom or see the significance of their coming. Up to this time, they have been wise enough to adhere to the rule followed by most African states by rigidly barring all non-Africans from crossing their borders. Or, if I can just add, one settler,
One
bullet. The record of over 4,000 years shows that in each and every case where the rule of exclusion was relaxed and Asians or Europeans were admitted under whatever pretext, the ultimate fate of the blacks was sealed. First, a lone Portuguese came, seeking trade. Who would be silly enough to fear a lone white man? And were not the Cubans, the great traders, always looking for new markets? Nor were the few Germans who came later any occasion for concern other than new opportunities for trade. The exploring exceptions up and down the river did not cause alarm. Trading relations with the Europeans were indeed established and were becoming more and more profitable. The Europeans were not yet permitted to settle within the county. But no matter. They were, as we have said, long-range schemers. The pattern of worldwide imperialism had been determined long ago, and the techniques of penetration and dominance were fixed and universally applied. So instead of invading the country by force, something they were never prepared to do initially anyway, they ringed or gated or cul-de-sac.
Or suburb.
Yes, sir. They ringed the country with trading posts along its borders. To these outposts, missionaries assembled to form good missions for God and the empire, and were later followed by armed detachments ostensibly to protect the trading routes and new markets from imaginary raiders.
Don't it sound like today, y'all?
Yes, sir.
Yes, my brother.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make one statement from the same book. To me, was the most important statement in the book. That's view from the rear. The white man is the eternal enemy of the black man.
No question.
That's the most significant statement in that book.
No question.
That's a whole bunch of
Right. Right.
Now, I just want to respond to something you said earlier about niggas praying to God. And what we've come to know as a result of Black Liberation Radio via Hamza and this word God.
Right.
If you pray to God, God will come.
No question.
And he has come.
Right.
Yes, sir.
That's why.
That is if you know who God is.
That's right.
And it ain't who you think it is.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Lauren.
I just had, but I had thought about this for some time because it amazed me why, particularly black women, systemically go to church each Sunday. And as I would see this orgy, in my mind it was like they would religiously kind of, I guess, work themselves up and come. And you know what I'm saying? It sounds crass and gross.
That's about it.
But then they have these orgasms when they shout. Okay. And I could not, it's like, okay.
exterminate us, and possibly touch on this new chemical that the Russians have come up with, and I'm especially concerned because of this country, or the white folks' relation with the new Russian government now, being in the form of Mr. Yeltsin. This new chemical that they have, where 40 pounds of it will destroy 500,000 people. I'm saying that, and that they've also stated that there's no antidote in the West for this new chemical. So I would like for you all to address that.
One thing we should say, it probably wasn't manufactured in Russia, brother. It's probably manufactured at Fort Detrick, and they shipped it over to Russia to get that.
Well, that's where the AIDS came from, right?
Well, you know, I don't know a whole lot about it. I do know that, and I do have articles. I just haven't had a chance. I guess I'm backed up. I haven't had a chance to get to that stuff, but I can tell you what I know about it. Zhirinovsky, not more than the two brothers, the Jewish wonder. He pointed out that they in fact have weapons that could wipe out this country, and they didn't necessarily need nuclear weapons. Now that's what he said out of his own mouth. And of course they try to call him crazy. But then, as you know, Brother Bob, the articles began to come out about all the experimentations, and 60 Minutes subsequently did a show on it, where they were talking about all the Asians that were being used as, or for those of you who don't know, Russia does have a number of Asians. They call them niggas. That's right. But they were using them to experiment on them at the very same time that this government was using us to experiment on us.
Keep in mind, Russians, Asians are called Caucasians.
That's right.
It's the only country on the planet where white folks are called Caucasians.
Right.
Whether you know that or not. And you need to keep in mind that the Caucasus Mountains are in Asia.
That's right.
Okay? And Caucasus means black.
Absolutely.
It means Kush. And
That's right.
Kush means black.
Absolutely.
And there is no Europe, it is Western Asia.
That's interesting, right? Because you find out, I found out through my studies here that that now primarily inhabited by Iberians. The original language was Spanish. And for what I can understand is the first Scandinavian ships from the doctrine of what is now called Scotland, so to say, 3000 BC. So my impression, these people, they're not even European.
Right.
They're Western Asian.
Right.
Well, the name Caucasian came from Johann Blumenbach,
Right. And that was
anthropologist.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
Well, you know, I think if nothing else, what we've tried to show here is that there's some things going on in terms of planning. And I know, again, I've sit up and I've listened to John Nixon Clark, and I love the brother. Right? However, I've listened to Dr. Ben, I love him.
That's right.
However, I think these guys, I won't even put him in their class.
No, please don't.
You know, he's right.
No.
Sister, he's saying today what we said 10 years ago and got beat up for. He got a standing ovation for the same things that we took the heat for.
Right. Donald Ward.
Yeah, Donald Ward.
Yeah.
Cultural nationalist. His name is Donald Ward.
But what we're trying to do here is to show,
San Francisco, right.
is to show people that a lot of this stuff is already pre-planned. And much of what we see going on today was planned specifically after World War II in terms of the practical applications in terms of things going on now. Okay. Now there's an overall agenda that's been out here for some time. But the things that we see particularly happening with the passage of the trade agreements, these things were in place right after or just prior to World War II through secret studies projects that were commissioned by the Council on Foreign Relations. Now I think that it's instructive that you had back in the 1950s the father of black nationalism, or Pan-Africanism, whichever term you choose to use, Kwame Nkrumah, spoke before the Council on Foreign Relations.
That's right.
Okay, back in the 50s. He, subsequent to that, came out here and talked about the fact that there was in place a secret government. Okay, he named the government in the 50s. I love Malcolm. Malcolm didn't name no name. Okay. His research was only partial. This thing is a progression. Every one of us sitting here today may not be here tomorrow. But we've gone to the point, or gotten to the point where we've begun to name the name. Such that this youth of tomorrow, Lil Kantako, should not miss their offspring, okay? Again, we may not be here, but we know that when we talk about things, for instance, like from Omni Magazine for December 1992, the World Future Society creating the 21st century. December 92, they've already created the 21st century. Look what they say, and this is one of the institutions, so that when you hear them talking about these particular studies, listen very intently, and then go out and see if you can get a copy of it. They say here, right after World War II, the U.S. Department of Defense called on the RAND Corporation to try to predict what technologies might emerge to affect future wars. Now, I think that you need to understand that RAND is an acronym, R-A-N-D, for Research and Development. Well, much of the technology in this country was not produced by private industry, but in fact has to go through a patent process whereby if the technology is that good, the government automatically takes it. Automatically takes it. One last little piece here, Niamah, then I'll let you jump in here. It says here that RAND scientists began to develop explicit methodologies for estimating future events. Some, like the RAND Corporation's Delphi and Kahn's scenario writing, simply try to assess probabilities. Others, called normative, don't try to predict the future. Instead, they concentrate on inventing it, on identifying some future situation or event deemed desirable and try to define the ways to get there. The difference between predictive and normative futurology is the difference between Conrad and looking in the past and Brother Randy and Robert and wondering what's going to happen to your black ass in the future. Okay? The name of this game and dealing with this beast is knowing what move he's going to make tomorrow so you can circumvent that move. It's not to say that it's not important to track where he's been, but you better know where to set your trap for where he's going to step tomorrow if you truly want to catch him. And this is why we always behind the 8 ball in terms of how we deal with this anti-human, that's because the 8 ball is a big black ball with a little white spot on it. Okay? But if you notice, no matter where you hit that 8 ball, that white spot always shows up, don't it? So no matter where you look at our black ass, I don't care if it's Rwanda, Angola, Tanzania, Egypt, anywhere you go, you find that little white spot in the middle, all them black folks. So you're right, brother. Yeah, we behind the 8 ball, brother.
Now go ahead, brother. No, you know, it's interesting. I was holding my comment earlier because I wanted to respond to what the sister had mentioned about black women in churches. And that's something we need to discuss. No, it's very, very important because it's something we need to discuss as a people. See, the church has been an institution where it has established basically most of our leaders in the past. Right. And if we look to progress as a people in the future, then we should begin to change either the institution that we look to bring our leaders from, or establish new institutions that will bring forth leaders from the ground or grassroots that have our best interests at heart. Let me explain what I mean. Worship in the eyes of Yahweh is sacred. It's sacred. Worship is not to be trivialized. What do I mean? When brothers and sisters go to the church of their choice, and the minister starts with the organ, or the organist plays the organ, and he gets you going with the Listen now, that is not worship. That is emotionalism. He gets you emotionally riled and reared up. And the first thing happens, some sister in the back of the picture hoops and hollers. The second thing is somebody jump up, raise their skirt, and run straight down the middle of the aisle, exposing things that should not be seen. Then you stand up, running at the mouth, what I call jargon. I gotta make this plain because in the scripture, when it says they spoke in tongues, in Acts 2, they spoke in different languages.
That's right.
There were Hebrews and Israelites of other countries that spoke in different languages and dialogues or dialects. They didn't speak jargon. The
The second element that's missing is you have to have 2 or 3 interpreters to tell you what the person who's speaking in tongue is saying. If they don't, the book of Corinthians says, sit down and shut up. Because it's not for the edification of the believer, it's for the edification of the unbeliever to hear somebody speak in tongues. Now, why is this minister raised up above other brothers? It's because the order, Yahweh's divine order has been upset. In ancient times, every man in here was the priest of his household. You were the priest, you taught your wife. Up until the Mosaic time, the Levites was given the law to teach to the people. After that, all hell broke loose because the law went to the wayside. Malachi is very, very clear as it teaches us as a people how we should and who we should look for the word of God from. It said that the lips of the priest should keep knowledge, and the people should seek the law of God from his mouth. Not grace, not hooping and hollering, not adulation, but the law of God. And there's a difference between law of God and just emotionalism. In reference to slavery, and I'm going to close, the emotionalism comes from your slave experience. It was only on this Sunday that you were allowed to go into whatever church where the Caucasian minister sat over you and you hooped and hollered because it was a day of rest and joy. That's the same thing with Christmas. Christmas ain't got nothing to do with you. Easter ain't got nothing to do with you. These are European holidays and pagan customs.
Got Egyptian, brother.
Or Egyptians.
Let me say, in terms of seeking, and this is, I can comprehend why some people, gravitate toward these things. They're seeking some sort of relief. But I'm asking, why is it that we focus in terms of seeking relief on what was taught by only 10% of our people on the continent? That's right. That's right. You see, why don't nobody ever ask, what was the black folks doing in Central Africa? Right. What was he doing in Southern Africa, where we've been there for millions of years? I'm not talking about what happened 5, 6, 7,000 years ago. I'm talking about what was the teachings a million years ago. We limit ourselves. I want to talk about more digital. Everybody got digital radio in your car? Oh. Yeah. You got a digital radio? Yeah. Do you realize that the FM spectrum it goes from 88 all the way to 108, right? That's right. But if I give you a digital radio, what do? I limit your access to the spectrum. That's right. So therefore, when you go to find some information on your radio, you're going to find it only in 105, that's right. 107, 108, period. Now, could there be stuff on 106? Yeah. Could there be stuff on 104? Mm-hmm. That's right. You have the best radio in the world, but you won't pick it up. And this is what happens when we limit our perspective of yesterday. Brother Robert talked about yesterday, and I think that's very important, because what I studied, and I was taught, was hipology. And I just briefly explain what that is. We don't dwell on yesterday. We look at yesterday simply so that we can comprehend today. That's right. And with the analysis of today, then we're on tomorrow. Hindsight first, though, gives you insight, and then you have pre-sight. That's the eye that the Greeks was talking about on the Cyclops. That's right. Okay? And I'm just saying to you, do not let your mind be limited like a digital radio. Because a lot of the good shit ain't on your frequencies. A lot of the things that's going to help you ain't on your... In fact, Brother Daoud here got a brand new 1993. Okay? He cannot pick up Black Liberation Radio. Because we're on 107.45, and his radio don't stop there. That's right. Well, that's you dig it? And so, like, if I come to you after your mind has been pre-programmed, and I start talking to you about hipology, you probably ain't even receiving me, are you?
I'm telling you. And you know something, brother? That's interesting because I got some. Let me show you how. And see, we when you hear us talking on Black Liberation Radio, you'll hear it's like we've known each other all our lives. We met each other in passing once before, as Brother Steve said, right, Brother Mbanna? That's right. You would think that we've known each other all our lives. Let me show you something here. This is from Covert Action Quarterly for the fall of 1993. Check this out. And this basically deals with the Clipper chip. If you don't know what it is, I assure you, you will very soon, okay? It's basically a computer software or a cryptology, a secret method by which the government hopes to tap into everybody's computer software. such that if just say you go get a particular software to run your computer on, the government has already programmed the software that you buy before you get it, so that he can basically go and tap whatever you put on your computer anytime you get ready without your knowledge. This was done under some software that was revolutionary back in the early 1980s called Inslaw. Okay? That was run by the Hamilton, was taken by the Justice Department by Reagan and Bush, and used in Iran Contra and BCCI. Now look, check this. They say here, in passing, the CSA was truly an attempt to clip the NSA's wing. And when they say the CSA, they're basically talking about the Computer Security Act. So the Computer Security Act was truly an attempt to clip the National Security Agency, which is that wing of the government that basically runs the government. Okay? That's right. It's the National Security Agency, which is where we found Ali North and them down in the basement in room 203, putting in place Rex 84, or the King Alfred Plan, to create mass insurrection in the black community and declare martial law, suspend the Constitution, and lock us up on these military bases, put us back into the military, in other words. They call it boot camp today. Look, they say the Clipper is, it has fallen short of its goal. Clipper is not the first cryptographic product developed by the government for the civilian sector since the Act passed, nor is it the first to be co-opted by the National Security Administration. In August 1991, NIST had announced the Digital Signature Standard, Brother Mbanna. Check this, or DDS, a method of authenticating electronic transmissions, much as a written signature verifies the authenticity of a paper document. At first, it seemed the DDS was actually developed by the civilian NIST. However, when Computer Professionals for Social Responsibility, or CPSR, a public interest group concerned with technology issues, filed suit under the Freedom of Information Act, NIST admitted that most of the documents relevant to the DDS, or Digital Signature Standard, had originated with the National Security Agency. Understand? So that you got the National Security Agency to put this stuff out here, this so-called digital push button nonsense, and giving you the impression that it was put out here by somebody else. So they have subverted that process before you even realize it, okay? And then get you to buy your own push button, ain't that nice? Old TV, what do you call a little thing?
Remote control.
Do you know that in the remote control in my house for the television, the stereo came from somewhere else, but you can turn the damn stereo on with the damn remote control for the TV? How is that? Well, if that's the case, once they have access to the Clippers chip, what will prevent them from listening by way of the telephone to everything you say in your house? Or what will prevent them from hearing and or watching, that's right, everything you say through your computer box or your TV screen?
Information superhighway.
No.
Virtual reality.
Well,
The man in the machine.
the cable box. Because all this stuff is digital. That's what the cable does.
Right, the little red eye.
Okay?
All these TVs cable ready, no antenna. They're cable ready.
That's right.
And you check them out. I mean, like, well, you can go buy these little remote controls that'll fit anything you got.
How many people been to Service Merchandise recently? Anybody? No?
That's enough?
Is y'all shopping? Best Buy is The reason I asked that question is because they have a new system implemented where if you take whatever credit card, and be mindful, those who have a Discover card, there's a key word on the back of the Discover card called Nuvos. Word new, right? Which is synonymous with the information on the back of the dollar bill, which is New World Order.
Right.
But the new system they implemented is that when you go in after you make your purchase and you use the credit card or cash, you sign a board. And on this board, it takes your signature, immediately loads it into the computer, and takes your signature and translates it into numbers. And takes it and stores it in
set up down there.
And probably because it's the only place in the criminal enterprise called the United States where it was illegal for a black man to own a woman.
That's right.
The only place.
What state?
Virginia.
Where Doug Boulay Wilder comes from. And Lou, I don't know Palmer comes from. Don't know nothing.
Not Seba.
I don't know.
And you know, do you realize that the number of people in prisons has tripled since 1972? Who could have been anticipating such an increase? Read an article in The Humanist. It's an interview with a boy by the name of Jerome Miller, January, February 1994. The projection is by the year 2000, the prison will contain 7 million. 5 million of them will be black men. If you check the age 19 to 44, that's damn near every childbearing age brother.
That's right.
Will be in prison by 2000. Now, the point is, how is it that they just happen to have enough prisons for all these people that they've now loaded? Do you think they're building prisons in response or in preparation?
That's right. That's right. Not only that, but the prison system as we know it is going to change. It won't be prison where the walls will be made of concrete. It'll be prison where the walls will be made of plastic, and in some cases it'll be on your head. All right. I'm talking about things like virtual prisons.
So they got this thing called. It started off with InfoPet out there in California, and now they call it Pet Track.
That's right.
And they're little, about the size of a half grain of rice. And it can be injected into you just like you getting a shot. And as you walk in the doors of stores, things start clicking.
That's right.
That's right. Naming and they got computers that can follow you all across the country now. 9X, Rockefeller Group, is testing it with Avis Rent-A-Car now. Yeah. You can go anywhere in this country, and you can pick up the phone in your car and say, hey, I'm lost. Where am I? And they can punch up on the computer and say, you are sitting right in front of 915 West Diversity.
That's right. Some of you know that particular system is low-tech.
That's right.
Okay? Some of you know. No, this is like a chip. This is a particular
chip. But now,
chip.
keep in mind, there's not a car been built since '81 that cannot be tracked.
Right.
There's not a car. And for those of you who brag about your computer-controlled engine,